NASCAR, of all major professional sports, is the only one to start their season with their biggest and most prestigious event, the Daytona 500.
Rain's out, rain's out. Earnhardt sneaking a peek. Got you on the high side. Remember what you told me a year ago. Don't let him get a run on you. Man on the backstretch. Caution be out. Keep digging. You're finally going to get it, buddy. Praise the Lord. Checker's back there, buddy. Come on around here, buddy.
20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come with a caution flag to win the Daytona 500.
Daytona International Speedway, a place where legends are born. A racing venue like no other, whose rich history dates back over half a century and is known in the world of racing simply as Daytona. Conceived in the early 1950s by Bill France Sr., he wanted a racetrack so grand in scale that nothing would ever compare. Little did he know what Daytona would eventually thrive to become, the pinnacle of racing greatness and one of the most coveted victories in all of motorsports. Completed in 1958, the very next year the track would host its very first Daytona 500, a 500-mile test of man and machine. Up until then, drivers raced just a few miles away on the sands of Daytona Beach. Now they had a world-class permanent facility to further test their limits. The Daytona 500 would go on to become what we now know as the Super Bowl of motor racing events, and to this day attracts race fans every February from all parts of the globe. Racing greats like Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, and Jeff Gordon have all etched their names into the Daytona history book, capturing their own Daytona 500 victories. Daytona International Speedway is a 2.5-mile tri-oval shaped racetrack featuring turns banked at 31 degrees, a 3,000-foot long back straightaway, and a 3,800-foot long front straightaway. The tri-oval shape was revolutionary at the time to provide amazing sight lines for spectators. Its high banks allowed race cars to travel at immense speeds, pushing the vehicle and driver to their absolute limits. Dirt for the high bank turns was excavated from the infield of the property, and the track was eventually built around this now huge crater that remained. The decision was made to fill the hole with water, stock it with over 65,000 fish, and create what still remains to this day as Lake Lloyd. The racing surface is a mere 40 feet wide, which still produces 3-wide racing with cars door-to-door at sustained speeds of up to 200 miles per hour. In 1988, cars were outfitted with what is known as an engine restrictor plate to keep the speeds of the cars under the 200 mile per hour threshold after a scary crash the year before involving legendary driver Bobby Allison saw his car almost take flight into a crowded grandstand. The nameplate racing took shape at Daytona after that and became some of the most popular racing in all of NASCAR. In 2016, the racetrack completed a $400 million renovation project known as Daytona Rising, which would see the grandstands and outlying facility get a full modernized facelift, transforming the grandstands into the largest stadium of its time. The new stadium stretches over a mile long across the famous tri-oval front straightaway and reaches a height of nearly 200 feet tall. The new stadium would feature several upgraded viewing areas, such as private loge boxes, high-end hospitality areas, and a members-only style club seating area perched high above the start-finish line. The Daytona 500 Club, a longtime staple of Daytona, remains as one of the most exclusive experiences for race weekend, featuring upscale food and beverage, a short walk to the garage viewing area, and a front row seat to Victory Lane, where Daytona race winners park and celebrate the most cherished win of their racing career. Part of the new Daytona Rising project came the installation of 5 themed entrance areas into the gates, known as injectors. each injector would be branded and decorated with its respective marketing. Seen here, the Toyota injector features full-scale Toyota Camry Cup Series race cars, providing a spectacular visual on your escalator-provided ascent to the Level 1 concourse area. Once inside Daytona's historic grounds, race fans are treated to world-class views of the 2.5-mile racetrack as they prepare to watch some of the best drivers in the world compete for the most coveted trophy in all of motorsports, the Harley J. Earl Trophy, which is handed down to every driver who wins the Daytona 500. Tours of the famous Daytona International Speedway are conducted daily and are open year-round for visiting race fans to experience firsthand Daytona's historic heritage. After a 60-minute tour of the facility, fans are dropped off at the Motorsports Hall of Fame, a shrine of racing history past and present, featuring the race-winning car of the most recent Daytona 500, complete with confetti and champagne coating its paint. The car will remain on display in the Hall of Fame for a full year and will be given back to the race team prior to the next running of the Daytona 500. Some of the displays of the Hall of Fame feature the famous Hudson Hornet, which won 79 races and 3 Premier Manufacturer Series championships from 1951 to 1955. 1989 Cup Series champion and NASCAR Hall of Famer Rusty Wallace has his beloved black and gold Miller Genuine Draft Ford proudly on display, believed by many to be the best paint scheme in NASCAR history. 4-time champion, NASCAR Hall of Famer, and 3-time Daytona 500 winner Jeff Gordon and his early 90s Rainbow Warriors Chevrolet. 3-time champion and Hall of Famer Tony Stewart's winged sprint dirt car sits alongside racing's best. No other driver in NASCAR history has more accolades than Richard Petty. With 200 wins in NASCAR, he is aptly named the King. Petty is a 7-time champion and 7-time winner of the Daytona 500. Petty drove this 1972 Dodge Charger to the 72 championship with 8 wins on the season. From stock cars to open wheels, motorcycles, drag racers, and more, vehicles of all types adorn the 31-degree mock-up of the famed Daytona track. With over 75 years of history continuing to accumulate, the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America continues to add to the rich history of auto racing. Along with auto racing, stars of 2 wheels come to Daytona every March, featuring the Daytona Supercross and Daytona 200 racing events. The Hall of Fame also pays honor to the stars of several other racing series. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, NASCAR Xfinity Series, and ARCA Menard Series each have their stamp on the Wall of Fame, honoring those who have excelled to the top in their respective divisions. Long before the Daytona International Speedway, the city of Daytona Beach hosted land speed records before they moved out to the Bonneville Salt Flats in the early 1950s. It would be these early speed records that would attract a motorsports following to Daytona, ultimately leading to the formation of the Daytona International Speedway. A prominent feature of the Hall of Fame is the renowned Daytona IMAX Theater. Here, fans can relax and relive many of the great moments in Daytona 500 history. The theater also was famously the site where you could view the NASCAR 3D, the IMAX experience, which debuted in 2004. Outside of the famed Tickets and Tours building features a Hollywood-style Walk of Fame celebrating each Daytona 500 winner from the last 27 years. The tradition started in 1996 with the completion of the Daytona USA attraction, which would later evolve into the Daytona 500 experience and then ultimately the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. 1996 Daytona 500 winner Dale Jarrett would be the first to be given the tremendous honor of inserting his literal stamp into Daytona's grounds, cementing himself as a piece of track history. Today, the tradition continues as each Daytona 500 champion has a block in which they leave a handprint, footprint, and signature, forever immortalizing themselves in Daytona history. Son of Bill France, Bill France Jr. would take over the reins of NASCAR in 1972, catapulting the sport from regional notoriety to nationwide and eventually worldwide recognition. Bill Jr., along with his father Bill Sr., were among the inaugural class of the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2010. The man who started it all. Bill France Sr. founded NASCAR in 1948 while racing on Daytona's famous beaches. France saw the potential that stock car racing had and wanted to evolve it into a sanctioned sport. He would go on to later build the Daytona International Speedway in 1959, and the rest, they say, is history. Throughout Daytona's storybook existence, one woman has been there since the beginning. Juanita Lightning Epten ripped Daytona's first ticket stubs in the inaugural Daytona 500 in 1959. Over 65 years later, and at the age of 102, she continues to work in the ticket office daily, just as she has since the track's inception. In all of her years with the Speedway, Lightning was a constant fixture behind the scenes, but amazingly had never seen a lap of racing on the famed racetrack. That was until 2018, while celebrating her 60th year with Daytona, she made the venture into the grandstands to finally experience firsthand what she had been helping fans do for over half a century: experience the speed and thrills of Daytona. Lightning has dedicated her life to further advance the enrichment and progression of Daytona International Speedway's continued success. In August of 2022, Daytona International Speedway rebranded the ticket office the Lightning Epten Ticket Office in honor of her long time and continued devotion to the World Center of Racing. With her 103rd birthday approaching, Lightning has no intentions of slowing down and continues to be a pioneer of Daytona International Speedway. The winningest driver in Daytona's storied history is Dale Earnhardt. Earnhardt amassed a total of 34 victories across a number of different racing series from 1980 to 2000, including the 1998 Daytona 500, which he would finally win in his 20th attempt. As fate would have it, Daytona would also be the site of his untimely passing, where he sadly lost his life in a crash on the final lap of the 2001 Daytona 500. Along with racing events year-round and tours of the Speedway offered daily, fans can also channel their inner racer and take part in the NASCAR racing experience. Fans can choose to ride shotgun in a real race car with a professional instructor at speeds of up to 165 miles per hour for 3 full track laps. If that isn't enough adrenaline for you, take your experience to the next level and strap yourself into the driver's seat for a timed race session between 5 to 48 minutes of track time. No pace car to follow and no instructor with you. Just you, the race car, and Daytona. Along with the NASCAR racing experience, the track will also host hot laps for special events. Hot laps are driven by a professional driver of the Speedway in a retrofitted passenger car. Guests can pile into any seat with a seatbelt and take an action-packed ride around Daytona at speeds of up to 120 miles per hour, taking in the track's famous sightlines from the driver's perspective. Experience the speed and G-forces of the 31-degree bank turns without any training necessary. Let's take a lap around Daytona's famed high banks. In a NASCAR-sanctioned event, cars must maintain a pit road speed limit of 55 miles per hour. Once they reach the end of pit road, cars will begin their climb through the gears, accelerating up to the vehicle's top speed. Racing past the end of the front stretch grandstand, cars enter the high-banked Turn 1, the first of Daytona's 4 corners continuing around, approaching Turn 2, before making the transition back onto the flat of the famed Daytona Superstretch back straightaway. Although appearing flat, the back straightaway is also slightly banked at 2 degrees. With cars now at their maximum speed, they prepare to enter Turn 3, climbing the high banks once again, circling around to enter the final corner, Turn 4, as they make their way down the short chute, approaching the start-finish line. Drivers are greeted by the cheers from over 100,000 screaming fans in the grandstands as they travel through the 18-degree banked tri-oval section. Along with stock car and motorcycle racing, stars of the International Motorsports Association, also known as the IMSA Series, flock to Daytona every January for the ultimate motorsports endurance race, the Rolex 24-Hour at Daytona. For this event, Daytona's famed infield road course, in combination with the high bank turns, takes center stage. The race consists of 1 car per race team, with driving duties shared between 3 to 4 drivers on average. Each driver will race a stint of 2 to 3 hours, and then come down pit road and complete a driver swap. This process continues for the entirety of the 24 straight hours of racing. Each driver's performance and lap times are carefully monitored by the race team and will prove important come the final hours of the race to determine which driver takes the seat for the final stint, racing for the checkered flag. Like NASCAR's Daytona 500, the Rolex 24-Hour at Daytona is one of sports car racing's biggest events, second only to the 24-Hour of Le Mans. For over 65 years and counting, Daytona International Speedway continues to flourish as a renowned attraction in the world of motorsports. Its legacy is cherished by all who have conquered its famed high banks. Daytona will continue on with the tradition of providing world-class racing events and will always be the home of the Daytona 500, a top crown jewel event of NASCAR and a glorified spectacle in all of auto racing.